With me today, I have Ben and Darren from Captivate, who are experts on psychology and masters of persuasion. They've spent 20 years or combined 20 years at Google. And we all know that there's some significant psychological and ethical concerns regarding AI and its applications in design. And so super excited to chat with Ben and Darren. And today, I think you guys have a presentation, so I'll just pass the mic over to you guys. So take it away.
Thank you, Frederick. Yeah, thank you so much. And hello, everyone. My name is Darren Chiu, and I'm joined by my co-founder, my good friend, and my favorite human intelligence, Ben Weiss. Now, we know there's been a lot of emphasis on the technical aspect of AI in recent months. So today, we want to change the gear a little bit and talk about the human side of AI, right? We want to help you understand. We want to give you the tools to manage change in the age of AI. And before I go on, I will say this. Over 80% of today's research is done by Ben Weiss. So if you don't like anything that we say, his name is Ben Weiss. And also, to add a cliffhanger, if you stick around to the end, I will tell you a fun story to why I always finish my food. Now, with over thousands and thousands of people on this call, I'm sure we have some Taylor Swift fans in the audience today. Now, whether you are a Swiftie or not, we all have to objectively agree she is having the best time of her life. Right, in the past 12 months, she's broken so many records. Right, in the last year, her popularity grew 6 times. And she's done so many cool things that she's become the most streamed artist, dominated all top 10 charts in Billboard. She won a Grammy. She single-handedly generated $5 billion in consumer spending in the United States, which effectively delaying recession. She made it to the cover of the Times Magazine, and she still had time to break up with her ex and find herself a new boyfriend. Okay, this is insane. Like, I don't even know what my Gmail password is. And she is so popular, she is so powerful, and she's changing the economy. And the reason why we're telling you this today is because while all this is happening, AI absolutely crushed Taylor Swift. Okay. In this last year, AI grew 8 times. AI is popular, AI is powerful, AI is changing the economy. Like AI is like the Taylor Swift of technology. In fact, AI is better at being Taylor Swift than Taylor Swift is at being Taylor Swift. And I think this is why we're all here today, right? This is what makes this event possible. And one of the reasons why AI has been so popular is the ease of use through platforms like ChatGPT and Gemini. It's so convenient, it is so user-friendly. Right? Look at this screen over here. On the left is my text message with my friend, who is neither artificial nor intelligent. But on the right is ChatGPT. And the user experience is identical. Right? I'm essentially just DMing AI. And as you can see, my friend who is completely confused about where she was. I asked her to come to the Cameron house, and she's like, I can't get there. I'm in Roncesvalles, and the shuttle bus only goes west. And I'm like, I am west of you. And of course, that fact is completely verified by ChatGPT that Cameron House is in fact west of Roncesvalles. But our point is this whole AI experience is so simple. You just chat. It's so convenient. And if this is any indication on where we're going, the adoption of AI should be painless. But that is not really the case, is it? Right? Because if you put things in the hands of corporate bureaucracy, you start getting these confusing languages like prompt engineering, narrowing AI, activation function, underfitting, overfitting, unsupervised learning, sentient cognition. All these things are a little bit overwhelming, right? And by the way, unsupervised learning, what is that? That sounds chaotic. That sounds like the public school of AI. No human being who's afraid of AI wants it unsupervised. Now, we're not saying knowing these terms aren't necessary. In fact, most of you here probably know what these terms mean. But we are saying for the non-experts, there is a tolerance of threshold to the unfamiliar. And of course, to make matters worse, there are organizations who went way too far, too fast, and mistakes happen, and it generates fear, and it creates an even greater mental barrier to the non-adopters. And now all of a sudden, our perception of AI changes, right? Starts to splinter from the cool experience that we have from Gemini and ChatGPT. And if we take a closer look at all the top barriers to AI adoption, Do you notice a pattern here? Education, awareness, skill set, everything here is all around human issues. These are all human related problems. All right, so the challenge around AI adoption is a very human one, which leads to our central thesis of today. The use of artificial intelligence cannot be done without emotional intelligence. And now that we know this is a human problem, not a technical problem, how do we address this?
All right, the first step is to start with an understanding of how the human brain approaches change in decision-making in the first place. And then we'll use that as our foundation to move forward from. To do this, we like to rely on a really great analogy we found by a psychologist named Jonathan Haidt. And that's this, the idea of the elephant and the rider. Now, take a second and imagine yourself sitting on top of this 10,000-pound animal. You're looking down at the ground 20 feet below you. You've got these reins in your hand as though that gives you any sort of control. It gives you an illusion of control. But who do you think makes the decisions here? Do you as the rider have any control? Of course not. No matter how hard you try to drag that elephant along, you can't possibly move it. That elephant is going to do whatever it wants. And you as the rider, pardon my French, but you are shit out of luck. And this is the same as how your brain works. The rider is the rational side. It's the part of your brain that deliberates. It considers facts and data and logic. The elephant, on the other hand, is the irrational or emotional part of your brain. It makes quick decisions based on intuition, gut instinct. In fact, studies have shown that up to 90% of any given decision comes down to the emotional side, to that elephant. Now, think about your effort in driving AI adoption wherever you work and ask yourself how much of the time is being focused on the technical specs and the operational processes, in other words, the rational rider of the equation. Now, how much of your time is being spent bringing people along, addressing their fears and concerns, building hope and excitement? This is the emotional elephant. And I'm willing to bet that you spend a heck of a lot less than 90% of your effort here. So we aren't going to give you a business framework for change management. There are plenty out there that tell you all about, gathering your first-party data, evaluating capabilities. They'll give you Gantt charts that are so small that you need a microscope to read them. And don't get me wrong, these are great and important. But if you rely on these alone, I promise you, you will fail. These speak exclusively to the rider. And let's be honest, this is the approach that we see most people taking. And despite the amazing ideas and the cutting edge technology that we know about, they fail. Now, do you know what happens when you try to create change only with the rider? It looks something like this. This poor guy is not going to get very far. So today, let's stop trying to drag that elephant and let's learn how to ride it. We are going to address the psychological and emotional side of the equation. And our hope is that this sets you up to go back to your companies, back to your projects, and achieve even greater success in leading change. So we're going to introduce a simple 3-step framework that you can use right away to start managing this. A lot of this is based on an amazing book called Switch by Chip and Dan Heath. I suggest you pick it up. And there are 3 steps here. First, directing the rider. You need to know where you're going. Number 2, and most crucially, is how do you motivate that elephant so it's walking on its own instead of being dragged? And number 3, once you have that movement of the elephant, you need to start to shape the path for it to walk along. And what we really love about this model is A, it's really simple, which I think in itself is a key part of change management, but also that you don't have to use it as a step-by-step guide. It doesn't have to go 1, 2, 3. If you understand the concepts, you'll start to recognize the right places to apply these lessons all over the workplace without the rigidity that you get from many other frameworks. Now let's go into each of these 3 in a little bit more detail.
Okay, well, thanks, Ben. So let's start with directing the rider, which is managing the logical and the analytical part of your brain. You see, a lot of us, we don't like ambiguity, we don't like the unknown, and we just want things to make sense, right? But very often, we make this crazy, nebulous, lofty request, like we got an AI now, okay? We got an AI harder, better, faster, stronger. But the problem with this is that nobody knows what it means, right? It's like Will Ferrell said here, no one knows what it means, but it's provocative and gets the people going. And it may be, but it gets people going for the wrong reasons. And one thing we have to understand is that if you want people to change, you have to provide clear direction and destination, right? Remember, earlier Ben talked about you're the writer. What do we want to know as a writer? You want to know the GPS. You want to know where you're going and how to get there. There's no ambiguity there. And earlier Ben talked about the book Switch. Chip and Dan Heath, they call this process scripting the critical moves and painting a picture for the future. And now let's look at what it means to script the critical moves first. So there are three key components to scripting your critical move. Number one, you have to find out where your bottleneck is. Okay, because in order for things to move forward, you have to clear the obstacle. And number two, instead of having this lofty plan, you have to create smaller, manageable steps. Remember, change is a process, not a singular event. And number three, the most important piece, you have to give very clear instructions on how to get there and exactly what to do. And to really put this into practice, there is one place where you see this method applied almost every time without you even knowing it. You know what it is? It's weddings. I'm sure most of you here have been to at least one wedding in your life, and you will notice almost at every wedding, the DJ at one point always plays the YMCA and Sweet Caroline song. And you see, every wedding, there are people who are not dancing, not singing, and the bottleneck is these people, they don't like dancing, they don't like singing because they don't know what to do and how to do it well. But as soon as these songs go on, everyone goes on the stage, goes on the dance floor, starts singing and dancing. Why? Because these songs give out such clear instructions with very manageable steps. Right? Doesn't matter if you're a good dancer or not. As soon as YMCA goes on, you know you have to put this with your hands. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. And whether you're a singer or not, you know at the end of Sweet Caroline, you just have to go ba ba ba. Very manageable, very actionable. Right? That's what we need. That's one thing you should be mindful of is that you have to introduce very clear instructions when you want people to change. Clear and simple instructions will empower action. Number two, when it comes to painting a picture for the future, there are three things you want to do. Number one, you have to tell people where they're going, why they're going there, and lastly, what it will look like once we get there. Right? Because when it comes down to expectation setting, no one will follow you if they don't know where you're going. So in your organization, in your journey of AI adoption, have you painted a clear vision for your employees? Right? Because AI is such a broad topic. What does it look like for you specifically? How is it going to change your job? How would it be better once you adopt? Right? It's also very important to talk about the future in relation to now, because then you are recognizing the accomplishment they have achieved, and so then that way people can envision themselves in the future state. Now, there is a great example that we want to share. So Ben and I, we know this company that was really struggling with adopting AI in their sales management system. Now, this AI tool is supposed to save them hours of time and help them manage their pipeline. But it's not happening. People are not adopting it. And as you can see on the screen here, the three things that people are talking about is that the AI output is incomplete. They think it's pointless, so we're not going to use it. And to be fair, these are pretty logical, pretty fair objections, and I will agree. So then what we told them is that you have to address this from a very logical perspective because the objections are logical ones. So first, so let's paint a picture. Let's tell them where we're going. So we explain that, hey, AI, this is a tool that gets better based on usage. So the more you use it, the better it's going to get. Eventually, you will be perfect. And the end goal here is to help you eliminate hours of admin and manual work so you as a team can focus on better stuff, things that you can more meaningful, like spending time with your customers and creating meaningful relationships. Right? Now that we know where we're going, let's also tell them how they're going to get there. So script the critical moves. So instead of telling everyone to do AI now, let's say, hey, let's just put away 15, 20 minutes a week. That's it. And all you have to do is go into the system and click a few buttons, tell how well the AI is doing. Do I accept or do I reject the proposal? And that's all they have to do. And that's it. And within weeks, with just these two prompts, the AI adoption was able to improve drastically. Because you see, a lot of us, we know AI is important, right? We know we're supposed to embrace it, we're supposed to utilize it. But the kicker is knowledge alone does not change behavior, right? I know I shouldn't eat Cheetos every day, but I do. Because in the psychology of change, there's so much more than just knowing. And now that we know the writer part of your brain requires direction and instruction, let's talk about how to ride that elephant.
All right, so now we have appeased the rational rider. And I use the word appease very intentionally there because we know that the real challenge is how do we motivate the elephant and get that moving. So while the rider might be holding the reins, it's that 10,000-pound beast that holds the true power. And I love this quote. You do not change people's minds by defeating them with logic. And I use this in a lot of presentations because it so perfectly articulates the need to appeal to that elephant. So the first step in the emotional appeal is you have to figure out which emotions you are trying to elicit in the first place. And you can think of these emotions in two broad buckets. You have positive ones. Think of excitement, intrigue, hope. And on the other side, you have negative ones. Think fear, hesitation, reticence. And the human brain is capable of both for a reason. Negative emotions are really effective at driving short-term, quick actions. When I want my kids to brush their teeth at bedtime, I often resort to negative emotions. I threaten to take away their toys or cancel their screen time, and that often works in the moment. It's effective at the point, but I have to go through that same brutal song and dance every single night. Now, if I want to drive long-term change, I should be pushing the positive emotions, make the kids feel grown up and independent. Then I wouldn't have to have that same fight every night of my life. And the same holds true for the adoption of AI. This is a long-term change that we're driving, and we need to focus on those positive emotions. So how do we do that? One very effective method that we really like from the psychology research is called self-perception priming. To put that simply, it means exposing someone to a specific stimulus that will subtly influence their self-perception and in turn will help drive the behavior that you're after. So let's think about the types of self-perception or self-identity you might want to encourage that are going to lead to greater adoption of AI in the workplace. Why don't you, if you're there, please drop a note in the chat just saying, how do you want to be perceived within your company when you think about the rollout of AI? Could be anything. Think of, you might want to be, expert, knowledgeable, proficient, change maker, early adopter, leader, visionary. Ooh, lots in the chat. Love the engagement. Thank you. Now, here are some examples of ads that I've seen over the past few months. This first one is all about driving the emotion of fear. It says, stop losing. It's got this dark, moody lighting. I mean, who isn't afraid of losing? To be honest, my initial reaction would just be to keep scrolling and ignore it. And now, here are two more. And yes, I realize the event is put on by Superside, and these are Superside ads, but I actually saw these a couple months ago and saved them before they asked us to speak because they illustrate this concept so perfectly. Now look at the wording there. It says, leading brands, fast-growing companies, ambitious brands for the world's top companies. When you read these, it primes your self-perception, your very identity. Look, reading some of the things that people put in the chat, this aligns with how you want to be seen. Do you want to be perceived as an ambitious leading brand? Do you want to be perceived as part of a fast-growing top company? I know that I do. It taps into your emotional desires and activates your elephant in a positive way, which means instead of the change becoming a matter of different actions or consequences, it becomes a matter of their identity. And the identity, your identity, is very motivating to that elephant. So think about yourself today. Who in this room wants to be a change maker? Who wants to be a leader, a visionary? I'm seeing me in all caps. Thank you. So we're kind of using this concept on you. And I'm going to challenge every single person listening here today to be the change maker, to be the leaders in your organizations, because you have that unique chance to be the hero in your company that's going to drive that wild value. Now, the second principle we have is called the mere exposure effect. This one almost feels too simple. Basically, the more someone is exposed to something, the more familiar it becomes, and the more familiar you are with it, the more you like it. That's why we see so many ads for the same brand over and over. You might think that it's annoying, but I can guarantee we see the data and it works. And it's not just about advertising. There are companies out there that pay big bucks for product placement for this exact reason. Repeated exposure leads to positive association, to positive emotions. Now, do you remember a few years ago, it seemed like you could not step outside, you could not even open your eyes without seeing Starbucks. This wasn't a coincidence. They even made a accidental cameo in the world of Westeros. And that repeated exposure drives brand favorability. Now, do you remember what Darren said about how people view AI? A lot of people see it with risk. They see it and they're afraid of the uncertainty. Now, from an evolutionary perspective, humans choose the familiar exactly because it reduces risk and uncertainty. So again, think about how you apply this to change management at your organization. If you drop a brand new AI tool on the team and you expect people to just use it on day one, it's not going to end well for you. No matter how cool or cutting edge the technology is, it is going to scare the hell out of people. You need that repeated exposure to get that familiarity to bring people around. So I put out a call on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago asking for examples. And I got a really great story from a friend of mine. He works in the marketing department of an app company, and he wanted his team to start adopting AI in their creative production. But he knew that for a lot of people, the idea of AI was just too scary and that they would instinctively resist that change. Now, does that sound familiar to anybody? Sure does to me. So instead of jumping into the proposal or the changes, he started with a series of touch points, planning out that repeated exposure. So he ran a bunch of different lunch and learns. He hosted different education sessions and bring people together to expose people to the tools and AI in multiple small moments. Quick live demos and have open discussions. And through this repeated exposure, people became much more comfortable with the idea of using AI at all. So when he proposed an actual project, people weren't afraid, they were excited. And in the end, the initiative was a great success. So if you don't want to spend all of your effort trying and failing to drag an elephant around, you need to think about these emotional tools like priming, people's identity, the repeated exposure that is going to appeal to that elephant and get it ready to move on its own. And now, once that elephant is in motion, we move on to the last step on the framework.
Thanks, Ben. All right. So the last step of this framework is shaping that path. So creating an environment that sets you, the rider, and your elephant up for success. Now, before getting into this, I hope we're all watching the screen because we're going to play a game. It's very easy, very simple. All you need to do is name the color of this following word. I'm going to give you 3 words. I hope you're all ready. All right, let's go. What color is this word? What color is this word? Now, what color is this word? A lot of different colors in the chat. It's hard, right? This is very trippy. Why was it so hard? I think you all know why it's so hard, right? Earlier, we talked about the elephant and the rider, right? The elephant is trying to read the word blue because reading is such an automatic response. We see the word blue, we're not saying that's the word blue, I want to read it. But the rider is trying to stop and say, hey, but I'm trying to not say blue. I'm trying to say the color red, right? And that's what's happened when your elephant and your rider are incongruent. You see how tiring that is? And that's why breaking habits are so difficult. See, in order for change to happen more easily, we have to find ways to alleviate the workload for the rider and also clear a path for the elephant. Because think about this, discipline and self-control are exhaustible resources. Without shaping that path, it is very tiring for the rider to constantly control the elephant through an obstacle course. So one of the first things that you have to do to alleviate the stress between the elephant and the rider is really to create an environment that is conducive to change. So, which, in other words, create that environment where the desired behavior is the default behavior. Right? Because environment tweaks beats self-control every time. See, there are retailers, industries, they spend millions of dollars try to create that environment, whether in store, in app, in all these places. And one of the good examples actually is a library. Right? It doesn't matter what culture you're from, where you are in the world, but as soon as you walk into a library, you know exactly how to behave. The chairs, the tables, the noise control, everything is designed to help you focus, to study and read. Creating the environment where the desired behavior is the default behavior. Another great example here is Costco. I'm sure a lot of people here love Costco. I love Costco. And what's the first thing you notice when you walk into a Costco? Is this, right? The electronics section. Why? Because number one, it's visually stunning, so it's exciting. It marks the beginning of an adventure. But also number two, these are the highest ticketed items. Shoppers have higher likelihood of fitting this purchase in their mental space, in their mental budget, before all the groceries. But imagine if this was the other way around. Imagine this is at the end of your shopping journey. You have a whole cart full of groceries already, all the daily necessities you've already spent hundreds of dollars on. You're way less likely to entertain the idea of a new TV or a new iPad. Another thing that Costco does really well, I'm sure a lot of people have noticed, is that you notice they have zero marking. There's no marking where the items are. There's no marking on aisles, anything. You are physically forced to walk down the aisle, every single aisle by aisle to find the item that you want. And which we all know, this process increases the likelihood of you buying, right? This is why every time I go to Costco, I just want toilet paper. But I walk away with a full sectional couch and a Samsung TV set. Because they're creating that environment for me to buy. So what this means for your organization, what this means for your business, it may mean removing distractions, maybe creating an environment where the new default is the desired default, right? Maybe you apply an auto upgrade to your system or your tool where you have a new baseline where the old process, where the non-AI related process is obsolete. Or maybe you want to give people better access to support, maybe adding your external agency to your internal Slack or a direct line of support for people to ask AI questions. Help them immerse in the product, help them immerse in the process of AI. Another way to alleviate the stress between the elephant and the rider and shape that path is what they call rallying the herd. And the idea hinges on the psychology of social proof, right? There's a part of us, we want to conform. We like to seek validations from others, right? We value collective wisdom. This is why we love reading reviews. Right? And what this means for you is you can shape that path for your elephant and the rider by gathering like-minded individuals, supporters, advocates to create a sense of trust within the community, right? An epic center of excellence where they can help you champion your movement. Right? Collective wisdom is very, very attractive. And here's another example that I pulled from Superside. This is a great example that I think really encapsulates how they rally herds. Right? So SalesLoft is a company that offers an AI-powered platform to help sales teams drive and manage revenue. And they have this mission to just drive brand equity and awareness. Right? That's a very lofty and nebulous goal, brand equity and awareness. Right? And instead of having this lofty goal of gaining market share, they decide to rally the herd. And what they do is they hyper target tech savvy people who are the most likely to become their early adopters and be their champions. So what they did is that they strategically crafted a message for the tech savvy audience only. They launched their campaign during a tech conference and they geo marketed to that specific area, and also including having their physical ad inside the nearest subway station. So find your herd, strengthen your community, and use that power of social proof to grow your movement and to grow your impact.
All right. Now, before we close out, we want to leave you with an example to try to bring all of this to life. Now, imagine you're working on a project to get your marketing team to adopt AI-powered dynamic creatives. Apart from the obvious, give Superside a call. We are going to go through all three of the steps together to help bring it to life. So let's start with the rider. First, we want to paint the picture of the future for them that's clear and compelling. So we say we are going to adopt AI creative in all digital channels, and that's going to save us 50 hours of manual work. It's clear, and now the rider has a very specific destination that it wants to head to. Next, we need to script those first moves so that we remove as much of that initial ambiguity as possible. So let's say we want to choose the tech or evaluate the tech providers and pilot the ads specifically in social channels this quarter. These are smaller, more bite-sized steps that are easy to wrap your head around. You don't need to micromanage the entire thing from start to finish, but give them that first few steps and that end result that you're going for. So now we've appeased the rider. Let's move on to the elephant. First, we're going to find those early adopters, and we're going to prime them by calling them the company's AI innovators. These are the people that want to be viewed as change makers, probably a lot of the people we have on the call today. We're appealing to their identity, not to their activity. But we also need to appeal to everyone else in the company. So we're going to plan to expose them early and often by sharing the creative output at each step along the way. The concept of AI-powered creative might seem nebulous to them, but showing everybody the simple and effective ads on a regular basis brings clarity and gives the chance for that repeated exposure. So we've done the rider, we've done the elephant. Let's move on to how we shape the path for them, the final piece. So instead of introducing brand new tools and platforms, we're going to integrate them into our existing toolkit. And that kind of goes back to that first piece on the critical steps. That'll be an important part when you're evaluating those tech providers. It makes the environment familiar and easy to understand for everybody. And then we're going to rally the herd and bring everyone along. So throughout that pilot period, every time you launch a new ad or a campaign, bring the team together for a quick toast, a little quick glass of bubbly or ring a gong, make some sort of fun tradition out of it. And that is going to build the momentum, and it provides the social proof to everybody in the team to help them join in. We hope that example brings things to life to you. I mean, you could even say that we were scripting the critical steps and showing a vision for the future, directing your rider, as it were. And I hope that your elephant is already on the move from the examples that we've shared. Now, to help you put this into practice, we want to help shape the path a little bit here. We're going to send this slide around as a cheat sheet for everybody. Print it out, save it, laminate it, put it up at your desk, whatever you want. When you are managing change, come back to this, refer to these steps, and we promise that you will be far more successful than you would have been otherwise.
All right, thank you so much, Ben. Also, before we move on to our final discussion, there are 3 things we want to call out. Number 1, if you like what you heard and you want to follow our journey, we are Captivate 2024 on all social platforms. We also have a monthly newsletter that you can subscribe to via this QR code. Please find us on LinkedIn. Ben Wise and Darren Chiu will be happy to chat further after this. And also, earlier I said that if we wait until the end, I would tell you why I always finish my food. And I think this story really encapsulates everything that Ben just talked about, the 3 pillars that we have today. So you see, when I was a kid, I had a bit of an eating problem. I didn't like eating, and when I did eat, I ate very little. And you know what my mom did? She would give me a reasonable amount of food, and she would say that all you have to do is sit here and finish this bowl of rice in front of you. And then just to make sure that I do it, she will make up crazy superstitions, which I later learned is actually a thing that parents say all the time in Taiwan, not just my mom. But she will say that you have to finish this. If you don't, for every grain of rice that you don't finish, you will become a pimple. But not just on your face, but also on your future wife's face. I know. This is not like, I'm not saying this is good parenting, but this is something that a lot of Asian parents say apparently. And then lastly, she said that we're going to sit here and you're not going to get up out your chair and we're not going to get up our chairs until you finish your food. And see, in that one simple sentence, she literally directed rider, motivated elephant, and shaped the path for me. Right? She gave me clear instructions that we're going to finish this food and here's right here in front of you. And then she tried to motivate me, but with a little bit of fear motivation. We all learn it's not the best, but it's an emotional driven tactic. And also she really rallied the herd to shape the path. She said, we're going to sit here as a family until you finish. And that stayed with me forever. And I feel that's such a fun and also just funny way to think about managing change in the age of AI. So now I'm going to kick it back to Frederick. Please help us wrap up and let's get into some discussions.
Thanks a lot, Darren. Fascinating story. We have a 3-year-old at home who's a bit difficult to feed as well. So I'll take some of those Taiwanese superstition tricks and apply it at home. And really great session, guys. We have lots of questions from the audience. I have a few questions of my own. And we have a few more minutes, and to the audience as well. If there are more questions, feel free to submit in the chat. To begin with, what should leaders do? Is there any advice that you have? Should you just be bold and crazy? Not necessarily. Leaders might not necessarily be able to have the time to get context and understand all of these tools and figure out everything, but they still need to provide some kind of guidance. So what would be your advice to any leaders or aspiring leaders out there?
Yeah, thanks, Frederick. I think that leaders, even though there might not be kind of in the day-to-day weeds, still have a really important role. And if you think about the different parts of that framework we walked through, that vision of the future to appeal to the rider is going to be really crucial. And that's something that I think needs to come from leadership to understand where you as an organization or as a company, where you're going. The second piece, I think there's a really big cultural element when it comes to change and the adoption of AI. And some things that I think leadership need to really address. One of the most common fears that we hear and we see everywhere is people are really afraid about impact of AI on their jobs. And I think some level of reassurance that they can give, or as much as they can give. I think having and setting the tone on a culture of sharing success stories, finding those really great bright spots and promoting them so that everyone knows them. And then finally, and very specific to the adoption of AI, I think the idea of a culture of experimentation is really important. And we talk about the vision, we talk about, scripting those first few steps. But with generative AI, it's also still so new that beyond the projects you're working on, people are just going to come up with other things. OpenAI launched ChatGPT. They didn't think of all the use cases that we'd be using it for, but everyone just applies their own thinking, their own initiative, their own creativity. And I think giving people that leeway to test and experiment with the tools to find entirely new use cases. I think of it's very different than a lot of software that you might want to roll out. If, let's say, you're doing a new expense management system for your company, people should not take liberties with that. Everything has to be exactly the same. It's exactly these steps. It has to be identical. For AI, for generative AI, the sky is the limit. And I think setting that culture and that tone with your teams to try new things and come up with their own ideas, I think is a really important piece that leadership very specifically should be playing.
Great. Yeah. And another question is around a resistance in the organization. I think we in Superside, we've been very fortunate to have so many people just be, incredibly excited about AI. Maybe because we're a remote company, people kind of grew up on the internet, etc. But among our customers, there's a little bit of a different perspective sometimes, and it's really hard to say who will be kind of the AI advocates and who will be the who will be resisting that. I mean, we have our customers are mainly American technology companies, and a creative director in an American technology company, you pretty much know what they're going to vote. You pretty much know, what they're going to think about lots of these political topics, right? But on the whole issue of AI, they can just land on either side. You will have skeptics and you will have people that are really excited about it. But it's very kind of right now dangerous to put your hand up and be like, I don't really believe in this whole AI thing. It's probably going to go away. So how do you identify or how do you handle this type of conversations if people are worried about it, or how do you even know, because people won't share? So how do you think about that?
Yeah, I can take that. So first of all, I think there's a difference between people asking questions and people are just resistant to change, right? It's kind of like back in COVID times. Just because you cough doesn't mean it's COVID. So first of all, as leaders, we have to really appeal. Like, people were asking genuine questions, we should answer them. But I think one way to really spotting like an actual resistance is spotting what we call in psychology the status quo bias. Meaning all of us, we like our current state, and we like to reason our way around any change based on how great our current state is. So language is like, we have always done it this way, or if this is not broken, don't fix it, right? Or like, I know better, or it's faster, let's just do it. It's going to take me 2 years to train this AI system. I'm just going to take 2 months and do it, right? These are the things that you want to look out for. I think look for that language, and as opposed to how to combat that or how to address that, I think asking the questions back. Right? I think the best way to really approach any objections is to ask questions, because there's a reason why people are objecting. Right? It's like, how would it make you feel if this happens? You said this to me. Why would you say that? Or what makes you say that? Right? If I can make this better for you in this way, how would that make you feel? I think asking questions is the first step to any objections that we have.
Great. We have a couple of audience questions too, and a couple of minutes left. Firstly, from Michael, who's asking how are our companies thinking about building the right suite of tools with the temptation of feeling that they need to adopt the next new technology. Like, how do you think about this trade-off? It's like very easy to just flirt with all these new fancy tech tools, and how do you think about like conservative being risky, etc. In this space?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at if you're watching the news over the last couple of weeks, which I imagine a lot of people that are here today have been watching, the speed of new announcements of new tools is more rapid than pretty much anything I can remember. That's for sure. So there is a bit of that FOMO for sure, where you think, well, I'm gonna, do I really want to go all in on this tool, knowing that there's going to be another one in 6 months? So there's a couple things, or two things that I would say. The first one is, as you're building out your kind of tech stack or the type of tools that you want to bring in, look for ways where you can build in that flexibility, knowing that the lifespan of any individual tool is probably going to be shorter than many other tools, or non-AI tools. So number one, build in that flexibility. And then I think number two is nobody should adopt AI just because it's AI and it's all the rage. I think you need to really make sure that anything you're doing is connecting that initiative, that tool, that technology back to an actual business use case, so that it's not technology just for technology's sake. Connect it to what is a business metric that we're trying to do. Are we trying to, reduce customer churn? Are we trying to improve productivity internally? Are we trying to increase our sales pipeline? Whatever it may be, choose a key business metric, not a tech metric, a business metric that is going to help guide all of those decisions. And then you won't feel that urge to kind of go after every new shiny object, because you'll have this filter of what you're actually trying to accomplish for the business, as opposed to just using the latest toy.
I hope you enjoyed that session from our virtual event, The Infinite Canvas, exploring AI's creative potential. There's plenty more to learn, so be sure to check out the rest of the sessions. Otherwise, head over to superside.com for more on AI and its impact on marketing and creative. Thanks for watching.